From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan, alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosabianca. What's going on today, Lou? What do we have on tap?
Matt, it's rare that this happens, but as in life, the only thing better than two New Yorkers is three New Yorkers. Today on the podcast, we have Jonathan Zacks. He is the co-founder of GoReminders, as well as the founder of Make It All Work. The interesting thing is he is the best friend to small business. Don't take it from me. You're going to hear it from Mr. Zacks. Mr. Zacks, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
That's our pleasure, pal. Tell us about these wonderful tools you've set up for the small businesses in America.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. Yeah, Make It All Work. Started out of me graduating college right after the dot-com bubble burst, and all my fancy prospects of startups and tech companies that everyone was getting jobs at just vanished. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'll start, putting up signs around town, helping people with their computers and their homes, which I was pretty good as a hobby. And built that up, moved to the city a year later, built that up to servicing businesses. And, we really focus on sort of connecting in both businesses. The common theme is like connecting non-tech people to technology and giving them the power of technology in a way that's easy to use, easy to understand, doesn't confuse them. And so that business built up into back-end web development, IT support, SEO consulting for small businesses that don't have those internal functions. And somewhere along the line, I started with a friend of mine, GoReminders, as a tiny side project to really aim at just cutting out no-show appointments for appointment-based businesses, anything from tattoo shops to attorneys and everything in between. And we do that through automated text reminders, online booking, and we have a bunch of other tools in that suite now to help businesses increase revenue and save time, all in a powerful technology product that is super easy to use with excellent customer support. And so that's really what we pride ourselves in. It's just like an easy to use, powerful platform for small business.
So let's unpack that for a second, right? So you're helping cut out no-show appointments. I know this is a real big problem for us over here because our sales team has their calendars booked every single day. And every time somebody doesn't show up for that appointment, it causes an issue or it causes somebody to be delayed to get to us who really needs our products and services, right? So is there a strategy behind that? Or is it just, hey, Mr. Jones, your appointment is today at 3 p.m. What is it?
Sure. So one of the things with no-show appointments is that often it seems like there might be one main reason why why people in general don't show up for an appointment. But it turns out that it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. There's so many little reasons that it's hard to attack the reason, but and then there are a few things that you can do to go after that cover most of them, 90% of them. And so people might forget. They might not really want to go to the appointment. They might have tried to communicate to you, hey, I have to cancel, but the message might not have gone through. Something might come up at the last minute. There's all these reasons. And the vast majority of no-shows, from what we've seen, can be figured out ahead of time and enough time to fill those empty slots, but people aren't doing the necessary steps to figure that out. So our software is sort of a crystal ball to see the future, to figure out who is going to no-show, who can I figure out now? Let's say my business, it needs 3 days before, like 3 days before. Can I figure out who is going to no-show? At least 90% of those people can't deal with the emergencies, but the people who are like, you know what, I just don't want to be on this call, never mind. Let me cancel let someone cancel 3 days before rather than having them be a no call or not pick up their phone, not show up, things like that. So timing, asking for confirmation. So if you send a reminder, whether it's manually or through a system like GoReminders, texting people is the way to get through to them. Text and email is what we offer. We don't do phone calls because we think it's just training people to not pick up the phone when you call. And so, sending them a text, and then the timing, sending them a text when they make the appointment, or maybe a week or 2 weeks before, but then sending them a text asking for confirmation at the point at which you will have enough time to fill that slot, because that gives them an opportunity to engage and look at the text and do something back to make sure they check their calendar. And it also gives them an opportunity to cancel ahead of time enough. And then to address the people who just forget or are busy, another reminder, on that day, maybe an hour or two before, however much lead time you need. If it's somewhere someone's going to travel, maybe it's 2 hours before. If it's just on a Zoom call, maybe it's a text reminder an hour before, but not asking them for confirmation at that stage. And so there's a bunch of different aspects of like when to send it, how many to send it, what to say in it. If you have a meeting where you're not sure people will really want to show up to it, and you need to make sure to communicate value to them. Hey, at this meeting, here's the date and time and the location, but like at this meeting, we're going to go over XYZ. By the end of the meeting, you'll have achieved this, or you'll have gotten this out of the meeting. Really communicating that value in the reminders is the way to go. And there's a bunch of this stuff, and I know I just spewed out a lot of details. We have a guide on all this stuff, and so if you guys can link to that in the show notes, that would people can just go to that and download the guides, a PDF. It's how to do all this stuff with or without GoReminders. You can do it all manually, you can do it with another system, but it goes into a bunch more detail on all these reminder practices.
I know as a consumer, I'm a big fan of text confirmations and notifications right before, because with our schedules, we're constantly on the go. As a business owner too, you're pulled in so many different directions. You're not sitting in front of a computer all day looking at your calendar and waiting for your next appointment. So I'm definitely a big fan. And even if I'm on the go via text, right? If I'm in the airport, I can take the call in the airport because I know, right? And it's not just an email confirmation, because I get a ton of emails and I don't even get through them all. I think, what is the percentage? They said 98% of text messages are read, and
like that, yep.
emails go unopened, right? So
totally.
How did you come about this idea? What made you say, I want to get into the text game, I want to get into the appointment setting game, or the confirmation game overall?
By the way, before I get to that, I'll just comment on a great example of a successful text message reminder is the one that I got for this show today. In several of the email reminders and the text reminder today, it said, you will receive a link to this on the day. And that is not necessarily a standard piece of information. So it's important that you included that. And it reminded me, oh yeah, it's not going to be in the calendar invite. I actually have to go, and it says check your spam. Perfect. It was in my spam. And
Jonathan, you don't realize how sophisticated our system is. Our system is so sophisticated that 15 minutes before this podcast started, one of the co-hosts had to text the other co-host to remind them we had a podcast today. It's unbelievable.
That's amazing. It's like behind the curtains. You see the machinery.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of text, and a lot more business is getting done via text because, quite frankly, people are busy and you just don't want to answer the phone sometimes. Sometimes it's a simple yes or no. However, there are times where a conversation is needed, right?
Absolutely.
Things get lost in translation. So how did you come up with this idea?
Yeah. So, my friend and I had been trying to build software products, a variety of them, some together, some alone, some with other people. And this was just one of the ideas. We were just trying to tackle a problem that was concrete enough, that caused enough pain for businesses in terms of wasted time and lost revenue. And one day my friend got a call from a hospital saying, hey, your 1-year checkup on this eye procedure that you had a year ago happened last week. You didn't show up. Would you like to reschedule? And it was just mind blowing to us when we thought about how much time, revenue was wasted on this, that people were waiting for him that day. Didn't see him, wasted resources. Then they wasted resources on having someone manually call him up to say, do you want to reschedule? Potentially losing him as a patient just in general by not showing up. It's way easier to get someone to show up for an appointment they've scheduled than to get them to reschedule and then show up to another appointment that hospital probably again wouldn't remind him about. So we started just with email reminders because his thought was, listen, like just an email would dramatically address this issue. And we quickly moved to text reminders, and text says when we offered both, we started looking at the data for how our users were using it. And it was just like dramatic how many more people were using text reminders than email, that it made it clear that that's what we need to focus. That's what people want. From an end user perspective, for me, text is great. And it really just sets the bar. Like, people don't text long, batches of info. It's just not the way to do. So the texts that you get need to be concise, and it's just a much smaller amount of communication than email.
I'm going to have to give you the name and number to my dentist, because they're still writing everything on a magnet that I put on my fridge with a marker.
And then my dentist used to call me, and they were so sweet. And I would pick up the phone because I'd think, oh, it's 3 days before. They're calling me. They need to reschedule. There's some emergency. The dentist is sick. And it would be the lovely receptionist who would kindly tell me, oh, just wanted to let you know you have an appointment in 3 days. And I'd be in the middle of another meeting. I'd pick up to make sure and I was like, I can't believe this is happening. So
it's not just giving you the reminder; it's the whole spiel. Hi, this is Anne-Marie over at Dental Zone. Yeah. We're so happy for your. Okay, get to the point. What are you calling me for? That's
what I figured, like, what I ended up doing is just ignoring every time they called, and that was fine for the dentist. But imagine you're a salesperson. You call someone to remind them about an appointment, and then they stop picking up your calls because they're like, oh, he's probably just calling me to remind me about something. Like, that's terrible. And so you want people to pick up your phone call when you call, like, there's an emergency.
But even it's not fine for the dentist too, because they're wasting resources by having
100%.
a body that could be doing something else with something that can be automated in the snap of a button. But I think a lot of dentists and older,
and a lot of people's voicemail is full.
They're afraid of technology. So how did you make it so stupid simple that these business owners could use it?
So some of our first users talked about how they had tried other platforms and there were too many goof ups, was the word that one of them used, which I love. There was just like too many problems. And so we really just focused on simplicity and ease of use to start. We had very few features, a small amount of functionality. We just got it out there to see, like, will people pay for this? Will people use this at first? And then how fast can we get to someone paying for this? And then we just kept building on, features for that. And again, always emphasizing that, we are for people, we are perfect fit for people who are moving from pen and paper. The testimonials that we talk about, include that line about, I tried so many other systems, they were goof ups. One of our testimonials is from someone who said, I tried 30 online scheduling platforms and yours is the best. Like, it's not necessarily the best for everyone, but for someone who's really looking to cut out no-show appointments and really looking for an easy to use system that they don't have to configure, we focused on that. I recently tried another scheduling platform, and there were so many hoops to jump through to create an appointment. You have to create a service. You have to create a staff member. You can't even create the appointment without attaching a staff member and a service. A lot of our users are just one person. They have one service, dental cleaning or a haircut. And maybe it's different things they might put in notes, but they don't want to necessarily select themselves as the staff member, their location. You have to set a location in many tools. So we just thought, like, listen, what is the simplest? We have all those things. You can add locations. If you don't add a location in settings, you never see location when you're entering an appointment. It's only there. We did things that kind of feels like magic, I think, to many of our customers, because it's technology to us. It's like, okay, an if statement. If they don't have locations, don't show them locations. But they go in there. If you don't have locations, you don't see it. And so that's really just been our focus.
John, you started this conversation very humbly by saying it was a perfect technological companion for low-tech people. But as you walked us through your flow, this is the perfect tool for every small business, not just people that are low-tech like me, but even people that are high-tech, because just by your client retention metrics, I mean, I could only imagine you're probably 50xing the monthly expense for your service.
Oh, yes. By like how many they're retaining clients.
Sure.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. The value. I mean, we've done video case studies and things like that where I'm just shocked at how much people say. One guy said, I walked him through the math. I'm like, how many no-shows do you have before? What's your average appointment value? And it was like $1,800 a week. And that was conservative. I was like, well, let's round down this. And he said, it was straight face. He's like, yeah, it's probably giving me about $1,800 a week in extra revenue. And he wasn't at all like, well, I don't know. He was just like, yup. And I was like, yeah, wow, this is really valuable. That was an auto shop that used to have customers lined up just randomly instead of assigning them time slots. And then, if they didn't get to them, cars would peel off and be like, okay, I can't wait any longer for this. And then he would lose customers every day and every week. And then he'd end up later in the day with a bunch of extra time that he could have fit people in, but they all came at the same time. They'd show up at opening. There'd be a line of cars.
So you built a software platform. You guys had an idea for GoReminders, right?
Yep.
So from the conception of the idea to the minimal viable product to your first sale, what was the timeline? What did it look like?
Let's see. Conception of the idea, I would say, was probably 2012 or 2013. We were building at least in 2013. And I think our first sale was sometime in 2014. And maybe our first user was either 2013 or 2014. But we had a free plan for a while. And so those for months, I would say like a few months that we had that. And then we actually started with it was just sort of going back and forth, like trial and error. We started, you have to enter your credit card in order to even try it. Well, that didn't work at all. We had no brand recognition. We had no standing. And it was just too slow. So then we're like, okay, let's just do a free plan and we'll see if anyone upgrades. But our limits were so high that never worked. And then we went to a 14-day free trial and that worked. And we sort of haven't looked back since then, or we've looked back, but not made changes to that much since then. We're just starting now to just do a 30-day money back guarantee. But yeah, so it was about this was again, I was started as a tiny side project, and so at that point, both my co-founder and I were just working on it very part-time. So yeah, about I would say a year, at least maybe almost 2 years till like paying from idea to paying.
And how many monthly users you guys have today?
We have 1,400 or 1,500.
Jonathan, our heart's going pitter-patter right now because Matt and I are staunch proponents of the idea that when you're launching a business, especially an app, you have no idea how you're going to get there. You just have to be resilient until you get there. So kudos to you for figuring it out all in under 1 year.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I would say that like we definitely we followed my co-founder read Lean Startup, that book Lean Startup, which I think is still extremely valuable and relevant these days. And another one that I've read recently is Lean Customer Development. Excellent book, very practical and very, very pragmatic. And so, he read it, and then I read it, and it just drove our mindset. Did we do everything right? Certainly not. But some things we're proud of are that like, we thought of so many features back then that would take time to implement. There was one feature that we still talk about these days, which we were like, yeah, we need this feature. And it was like, well, do we? Maybe we don't need it. We stopped development on it. We still, whatever that is, 9-10 years later, have not implemented that feature. And it's such a success.
John, in these 9 years, how many upgrades and improvements have you made to the app?
Many. So we now have a team of 5 people. And we, I would say like not crazy amounts. We haven't shifted focus and tools, but we started out with one text reminder and one email reminder. Then it was one text and one email reminder. Then we added multiple reminders. Then we added multiple templates. Then we added a sequence that you could say this template at this time and this time and this. Then we have added follow-up messages after the appointment to ask, and a review, like a Google business review generation flow to say, hey, how was your appointment? If it was good, take them to a review form. We've added email blasts, text blasts, a lot of infrastructure improvements. We've added a dedicated customer support person. That's always been, I used to do that myself. And then some freelancers and then full-time person. And so we've really focused on that aspect and building out our knowledge base. We have tons of knowledge-based articles that people can access themselves. In addition to contacting us, we have a weekly webinar. So we've really focused not only on like the actual features, which we've added many over the years, but also just the infrastructure of the whole experience for customers.
How did you guys decide on how you're going to market it and sell it, market and do sales, right? And how do you guys do that today inside of this business?
So we are essentially solely digital marketing and referrals and things like that. We don't have a salesperson. We don't have a sales flow. And that I just, neither of my co-founder nor myself were ever interested in that. We've dabbled in it a little bit more lately to sort of add some back and forth texting actually to our trial users, see if they have any questions, things like that, offering to get on a demo, things like that. But yeah, in the beginning it was like scary, and that was one thing I think we could have done better, but it wasn't for us, which was go door to door and just have more sales conversations earlier. Instead, we launched Facebook ads, and that worked for us. So just launching really general Facebook ads and doing a variety of digital marketing. Facebook ads does not work for us these days.
Jonathan, a good entrepreneur is like a serial murderer. You just can't stop. So after having a successful GoReminders, you're a glutton for punishment. And then you went ahead and founded, this time solo, Make It All Work.
Actually, it was the opposite. I found Make It All Work, and then I founded GoReminders as a side project.
Oh, thanks, pal. Tell us a little bit about Make It All Work, because if anything, this one probably has a more profound impact on the day-to-day operations of a small business.
Definitely. So Make It All Work is a consulting business, services business, where we function as anything technology for small businesses. So a large business might have an IT director, a head of engineering, web developers, digital, an SEO person. We do all those things for businesses that don't have that in-house. And so for some of our clients, we are all of that. And for other clients, we are just one portion. So yeah, that is like hands-on IT support. Basically, I would say 90% remote these days. We do some in-person work at clients in New York City. But yeah, so it's basically just running the tech aspects, again, with the focus of being like, how to run your, online news website and generate editorial and do advertising, things like that. You don't need to know how to make sure all the computers are updated and that the website works well and that that aspect.
Is that the same sales and marketing strategy? The platform?
That is not that. So that one, I started myself about 20 years ago and started putting up signs around town. And then when I moved to the city a year later, started going to a lot of business networking events in person. And just, I got some networking advice early about how that really jived with my discomfort with selling. It was like, go to networking events and don't try to sell anyone. You don't have to tell me twice. I hate sales. I'm happy to just go and chat with people and have conversations and make friends. Totally fine. And that's what happened. I went to a lot of networking events and made connections with people. And over the years, someone who had met me several years ago would get in touch and so on and so forth. And, some business did happen from people that I met, right away at events and referrals and things like that. But yeah, it was just a lot of networking and meeting people and telling them about, here's what we do. If you know anyone interested, would love a referral. And that's how we grew. And we also did some subcontracting for other companies in the beginning. And then some of those went out of business. And so then it was sort of like, okay, here are some leads, clients were already servicing from people who now they don't have anyone. So that's basically how I grew that. A lot of word of mouth with that one as well.
With the tech support, are there certain trades that your product just has a certain affinity for, or is it basically trade agnostic?
So it's trade agnostic. We service a lot of nonprofits. That's sort of one core, but it's pretty much anything. We have a really wide variety, like a jeweler, a caterer. It's just, pretty much anything. Anyone who needs tech support that doesn't want to deal with the headache of it themselves, we help them.
John, during a recent board meeting of the Liquid Lunch Project, where Matt was nursing a tequila and I was nursing the Glenlivet neat, Matt started prophesizing about how that post.com financial crisis generation had this disenfranchisement with, or even a disillusionment with corporate America, and how there tended to be this gig economy explosion and small business explosion in America after that. Any truth to Matt, or was he just drunk?
It's a good question. I've thought a lot about this, and I don't know the answer. I feel like at any point there's some macroeconomic reason that people are talking about of why businesses are succeeding or not succeeding. And my experience has basically been that most of the time for my businesses, it's not related to the macroeconomic aspects. And I think the key to that is just picking things that are really essential to solving problems for businesses. So when I graduated, like it was recession, and then it was the housing crisis, and it was just, ups and downs and ups and downs. And did we see a boom at any point? Not really. We found good clients who really needed our service, and just tried to help them in any way. When a client needed some other adjacent expertise, we tried to see, is that something we can pull in resources for and offer that service ourselves, or is that something just to refer out? And anything that was too far, we referred out. Anything that was close, we did. And in that way, we're just really focused on solving our customers' problems. And it's the same thing with GoReminders. We're really focused on solving a critical problem. If people aren't showing up for meetings, you're either if you're buying leads and it's a sales process, you're dramatically increasing your cost of acquiring a customer. You're increasing your time from lead to closing deals. And all those things can compound along the way. If it's someone that's paying you for a service, like a haircut or a lawyer with an existing client, it's clear. It's like, if they don't show up, you don't get paid. Business doesn't get done. And so really finding a problem to solve at that most critical point for the business, or one of the many critical points for the business, has been, I think, how I've had success in business, as opposed to focusing on something that could be, more steps away from a really important aspect, which I think is more likely to either spike or completely disappear with macroeconomic changes.
Well, I think what Luigi was trying to say, he was a little bit more eloquent than I was. So what I said is, after all of these macroeconomic events, I mean, in the last decade, there was probably 3 of them, right? And we're seeing it go on right now. I mean, Facebook, or Meta, whatever they call themselves these days, just laid off 11,000 developers and people, right? These developers are not going to go work for a big company anymore. They probably work for Meta, and they're going to go work on projects that they want to do, right?
Yeah.
But the reason they went to go work for them beforehand was they wanted job security, right?
Right.
And there's no such thing as job security, especially after COVID and everything else.
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing a rise in entrepreneurship. And my true belief is the American dream is not having 2.5 kids, a yellow lab, a house with a picket fence. It's entrepreneurship. That was,
I think, in terms of the numbers of entrepreneurs and whatnot, I think I have no idea what would have happened if I had graduated 2 or 3 years earlier, but 99% sure I would have gotten a job at a company as opposed to starting my own thing. Like, basically 100% sure. It was never in my mind to start my own business until my job prospects were, sort of like entry-level receptionist. And I was like, well, I think I have these marketable skills. Let me see if I can get paid for them as opposed to this. And if not, I can get a job as an office manager or receptionist, and we'll see where that goes. That was my plan. But the idea of getting, it was basically just my friend I kept talking to my friend who had not gone to college or dropped out of college a few years earlier and went to California and got a job as a web developer. And I withdrew after my junior year. This was the summer of 2000. Let's see. So summer of 2000, I withdrew, and I was driving across the country and got a third way across because I was going to go get a job my friend was going to help me get a job in California. And as I got each state that I got further, my friend was basically like, I think I can get you a job. Maybe I can get you a job. I'm not sure if I can get you a job. And it was like, okay. Called up, hey, college.
By the time you got to Nevada, he's like, hey, John, can you get me a job?
I got to Wisconsin, and it was like, yeah, exactly. He was like, I don't even know if my job. So I was like, I need to re-enroll. And they were like, great, you lost your housing. You'll be, we'll figure out housing, but yeah, you're back, fine. And so, it was just obvious that I would get a job at a big company. And I think now, maybe I would have gotten a job at a big company and then started something. but maybe not. And so certainly not right away. So I 100% agree that these times, and from what I've heard and read, that's the case. Like many more small businesses get started in these times because people need to make money, and if they can't, how much it's balancing the effort between how much effort do I have to put in to get a job that will pay me X versus how much effort will it take to just get clients.
John, we're looking at the calendar, and it looks like every 10 years or so, you make big moves. You're getting really close.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, you're getting really close to that timeline. What's next?
Oh, what's next? Well, one thing I've been doing on the side is investing in other SaaS products through Com Company Fund, which is a fund that invests in software companies that are not traditional VC targets, but are either profitable or going toward profitability, and maybe they will have a big exit. And there are arrangements but if you don't want to exit, no problem. And so I got in touch with them found out about them through a conference a few years ago, followed them for a year, and then started investing a couple of years ago. And they have a yearly fund. So I've invested in each of them since I started, and, mentoring some people through that. And it's been definitely a learning experience, and seeing a bunch of other software companies grow in similar and different ways, and manage things in ways that I can learn from. So that's been a little focus, very little of my time. But I guess, at some point I want to start something else. We'll see.
Listen, once you get bit, you never go back.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like that. I like the small and scrappy. But again, it's just balancing the risk and, survival, and like how much money do I need to make, and can I risk leaving this and starting something else? At this point, the answer is no. My focus is on my existing businesses.
That's awesome. So where did you find out? So tell me more about this Com Company Fund. So they invest outside of VC parameters?
So Com Company Fund, I think it's comfund.com. Let's see, CALMFUND. So they're great. So they basically have a contract. It's called a shared earnings agreement, or a SEAL. And it has a bunch of stipulations. So it has a minimum payback if you exit the company, for example. It has caps. It also has the shared earnings component. Let's say that kicks in at when a founder is paying themselves above a certain amount. And so it allows for founders to sort of be like, I'm not going to pay myself much. I just want to grow the company. I want to reinvest. And then they don't have to pay that back their investors. But once they start paying themselves a certain amount, they do have to start paying back investors. It also allows companies to buy back some of their equity as they go along. So as opposed to traditional things where it's like that equity is gone, this has provisions where you can buy back a component of your equity if you start paying back with that shared earnings. And so it's sort of a happy medium. And also, in addition to all the financial aspects, it has a strong focus on people who are leading calm companies. And I would definitely categorize my businesses as calm companies. We are not trying to go for $10 billion or even $1 billion. So, over the years, I've learned that it is way, like, the chances of creating a $100,000 company, $1 million company, a $10 million a year company, dramatically greater chances of doing that than creating $1 billion company. And so those are the things that we're focused on, and that these companies are focused on, of just running a reasonable team, reasonable product, not driving yourself into burnout, things like that.
I love that. That's exactly the type of investments that me and Luigi make through our small PE fund that we have. I definitely want to look into them and see what they're doing. I love this show, though. I learn something new every day.
Nice.
Every time we do it. So, John, thank you so much for being here. But before we let you run, can you tell everybody where they can find you on the socials, where they can find GoReminders, what the best way to get in touch with you, maybe demo the software is?
Definitely. So GoReminders.com is our website, and I am on LinkedIn and Instagram, I would say, are the most active platforms for me. So feel free to reach out to me. If you just Google my name, Jonathan Zacks GoReminders, you'll find it. And so, but you guys can link to it if you want. And feel free to DM me on either of those platforms. I'm happy to help. If there's anything I can do to help any other small businesses personally, if you have any questions that you think I can advise on, I am definitely happy to be a resource in any way that I can.
Last question before I let you run. What is the software that you use 99% of the time?
The software that I use 99% of the time, Chrome.
Chrome? Okay.
Okay, so what's not? I mean, like when I think about 99%. So I mean, my
everybody though, right?
What?
Mostly everybody. It's in.
Yeah. So my stack would be like Slack. I use Superhuman for email. And what else? Google Calendar for my things that don't need to be that don't need other people to be reminded of them, because that's the thing with Google Calendar. Works for keeping sort of things in my own calendar, but if I need someone else to be texted, it just doesn't work. But yeah, so those are the things that I personally use. We're just starting to use Asana, which I like. But yeah, for me, it'd be Slack and Superhuman and Chrome.
Yeah, I got to check out Superhuman. The amount of emails that we get is just insane.
Yeah, it's cool. If you like keyboard shortcuts, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like, and if you use them in Gmail, like Superhuman is superhuman in terms of keyboard shortcuts compared to Gmail. Gmail has some of them, but yeah, I basically rarely use my mouse in Superhuman, and I'm always using keyboard shortcuts to go up and down and switch tabs and things like that. And it's great.
John, thank you so much for being here. Guys, that's a wrap of the Liquid Lunch Project.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Lunch Project.